In the aftermath of the shooting, the president called for unity. That was yesterday. Today, Team Trump sent out an email asking supporters to sign a petition. Here's how it begins, quote, Democrats have absolutely nothing to offer our country. After their billion-dollar election loss, all Democrats have done is obstruct President Trump and maniacally scream the word Russia till they're blue in the face. They sparked protests in the streets, refused to approve White House nominees, destroyed our healthcare system, and used the media to spew vicious rhetoric against the president. Goes on from there. Meanwhile, in the aftermath of the shooting, Republican Representative Mark Sanford says the president is at least partly to blame for the vicious rhetoric. I'm going to speak with him in just a moment. First, here's what he said earlier today.
I would argue that the president has unleashed is partially, again, not in any way totally, but partially to blame for demons that have been unleashed, whether it's what I saw at a senior center back home and people saying F you and F you and F you to each other at a senior center, a retirement center, where they're going to see each other playing croquet the next day, or with what happened, again, not with what happened yesterday, but the fact that, you know, you've got the top guy saying, well, I wish I could hit you in the face, and if not, why don't you and I'll pay your legal fees, that's bizarre. We ought to call it as such.
Congressman Mark Sanford joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us. It's got to make you feel good to see so many people in the stands here tonight.
It gives you goosebumps. I've been to this game many years. I've never seen it as filled as it is tonight.
When you said that about that, at least the president is partly to blame for the demons that have sort of been unleashed.
And I want to be clear, I didn't blame him for the shooting that took place yesterday. What I said was, we have gotten to a point in terms of breakdown of civility in our country that it's a problem and that everybody's to blame. And the blame can go on the Republican side, go on the Democratic side. But when the president says to somebody in the audience, I wish I could hit you in the face. If not, why don't you do it and I'll pay your legal fees? We ought to call it for what it is. That's a problem. And we ought to call all of, I guess, each other, whether it's in church, whether it's at business, whether it's in a civic league, we ought to call each other on, are we being human to each other in the way that we relate? Because to have an open and civil society, you got to have a civil debate.
And you saw that at a senior center, people using expletives against each other, and that's a new development.
Again, I've been around politics for 20 years. I've never seen this kind of energy before. It's a very negative energy. And these are people who will be playing croquet with each other the next day. It's not like they don't know each other. They know each other, and yet they were using certain expletives that just don't fit. And I called somebody on it, and that's when they said to me, well, wait a minute. If the guy at the top can say anything to anybody at any time, why can't I say what I want? I said, because that's not the way we relate to each other.
How do things change? I mean, how does it change? Because even today, I mean, even with amongst all these calls for toning down of the rhetoric, you had, one congressman pointing the finger at President Obama for the shooting. You had Nancy Pelosi talking, making very tough comments about Republicans today.
I think we do it one person to one person. I hope that tonight's game serves as an inflection point. The fact that the crowd has come out as they have, with both Republican and Democratic staffs, saying, wait a minute, let's go support these players and what this stands for, not only in helping a number of charities, not only in standing for Steve Scalise, who's now in the hospital, and other officers who are in the hospital, but in this larger theme of we got to dial this thing back. And so I think it begins literally at the neighborhood level. Everybody has their own sphere of interest way out here, but they got a sphere of influence in here. And I think with those that we can influence, whether it's our family or friends, those we work with, that's the place to start.
If there's not real change, if it doesn't ratchet back, do you worry about this just escalating?
I do, because again, to have an open and free society, there has to be a degree of civility in the way that we relate to one another to have real debates. Because if we're simply impugning the motives of others or impugning the other human being, you can't even get to a debate on the ideas themselves.
I talked to General Hayden a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the thin veneer of civilization, which he feels is being stripped away, and that there's real danger. We all like to think that it's so entrenched that it can never happen, but whether you've gone overseas to Sarajevo during the war, you saw what happened there, that veneer is thin, and that it's important, as in your words, for individuals. It's not just respecting institutions, it's respecting each other.
Yeah, history is filled with all kinds of examples that remind us of how thin that line is between complete unrest and breakdown of civil society and that which it stands for, and institutions that are strong. And so it's incumbent upon every one of us in the body of politics to do our part. It's incumbent upon you in the world of media to do your part. But most of all, we like to lay blame to media or to folks in politics. There are hundreds of millions of people in this country, and the way we relate to one another, as I saw there in that senior center, in a way that I've never seen before, it's important that we look at how we're relating to folks in our own backyard or how we're using social media.
Yeah. Congressman Sanford,
pleasure.
Good to talk to you.
Good to see you.
Very much.
Pleasure.